Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Zach Celadonia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma. Joining me today, one Zach Flash Celadonia, as we get straight to the point following the Steelers' third postseason victory over the Detroit Lions, if you keep track of these things and stuff. I know the Baltimore Ravens do. They're undefeated in the preseason. Also undefeated in the preseason is Flash. Zach Celadonia. Zach, what's going on, man?
Oh, yeah, going for a three-peat. The third and final preseason game. That sounds weird this first time around, but glad it's over. Glad that we can get to some real football here soon. And glad that I hopefully sound better now with my new phone.
Yeah. I mean, the technology, man. It will always throw you off. It leaves you for a loop. I remember I just did the one from training camp in the hotel room, the new laptop. I still don't have that all quite refined. Folks were saying, hey, it's okay. And it's like, you and I are like, we got this OCD. We're sticklers for trying to make things as best as they can be. It's never going to be perfect. It never is. I don't know if it was just the audio feed that came in with the NFL Network watching that game, but audio dropped. It sounded like it was like radio, or if that was just the NFL Plus replay I caught this morning, because I was in and out while the game was live, and then I went back and rewatched and tried to catch some things. And boy, do I catch some things when Charles Davis talks. Anybody, it's the national media.
Similar thought. That's funny.
Yeah. Well, let's start with this. Has it been known for the Pittsburgh Steelers to not roster three quarterbacks? It almost like hearing that Mason Rudolph, the odd man out, Mason Rudolph getting traded, because some teams keep two, but this hasn't been the Steelers style. And I don't think with the way things, the ebb and flow of this season, that they're looking to, unless they, like we said before, I'm not going to be a broken record, unless they get an offer you can't refuse, something straight out of The Godfather. I don't think he's really going anywhere. They didn't really audition him in front of the Lions either. So they didn't get a first-hand look. Maybe if there was some interest there, they didn't do Detroit any favors. Maybe that was intentional. Maybe they didn't want him to look good or bad. Maybe that's like part of the cat and mouse game. But we went maybe 2 minutes without saying quarterback. So
well, we're not alone in that category. That's all anyone's talking about this morning, and I understand why. So,
well, let's see. We got a lot of folks. Let's preface this by saying I don't think you or I have ever said that Mitch wasn't QB1. We were stating whether or not Kenny Pickett could start. And we still don't have an official word on that because Mike Tomlin's going through he's overturning every rock. They're going through the normal process, internal, external. We're like, whoa, wait, external. What the heck is external? Is that Big Ben like coming back? He was at practice. He's feeling it. You know, he's going to play for vet men now.
Play on the line.
Play on the line. I don't want to jump to that just yet, but I'm not freaking out as much as everyone else is. You got one player that needs to step up their game, and that's Dan Moore Jr. So I'll just throw that out right now. I think the other guys could be serviceable, and I still think there's certain things that will be, again, ebb and flow as you get into the regular season and stuff like that. But ebb and flow of the first few series with Mitch Trubisky, a lot of it, he's getting handicapped by penalties. Yeah, Dan Moore with the hold, that one drive stalls that first starts. Again, he hasn't done anything wrong necessarily to lose the job. I still get like this, I get this pit in my stomach that makes it feel like last year's offense all over again with him. Whereas when I see Kenny out there, I feel like there's more upside. There's just like this whole other tempo, pace, and intensity to the way the offense plays. And again, I don't think they put everything out there on film in the preseason, et cetera, but I'm kind of wondering what your thoughts are on this, because I know you've been battling on the Twitterverse since yesterday, as have I. I've jumped in, man. I tried to be your white knight a little bit with some of the bad, stupid takes, like people saying like, oh, Mason, he sucks. Clearly we can get a third rounder for him. Like, well, if he sucked that bad, nobody's trading pick. There's people trying to package him with Benny Snell. And it's like, you got two players that you want to get rid of because you don't like and you don't think they're good. And you're going to automatically package them for a starting offensive lineman. A left tackle, no less. in the NFL. Like, come on, folks. Come on, folks. So, Air, I give you some stuff. I throw it over to you.
If only it were that easy. I said myself, if we can get a 3rd round pick for Mason, I'll drive him to the new city myself. I'll pay for his new cleats. I'm not, but I don't think we'll get that. That's what it would take for me, 4th at the least, to feel comfortable moving Mason at this point. But more upside, more intensity, more energy. Yes, that's how I feel when Kenny Pickett is on the field with the offense, and I felt like that was obvious. I felt like for a minute there, I felt like you and I were in the majority of people wanting to go with Kenny Pickett week 1. Along the line somewhere of these past 2 games, it seems to have shifted the other way, where more people are feeling the idea of going with Mitch week 1 and starting him because it's safer, and I'll venture to say even smarter. Like I'm not saying it's a bad idea to still allow the veteran to start. But I see the reward with the risk of starting Pickett, and I'm not as fearful. Like there's this whole movement and this big argument about, well, if you start Kenny Pickett and he doesn't start well and he's bad, then you can't possibly bench him, and that's it. Wasted 1st round pick. His career's over. And there's a whole lot to unpack in that statement as in itself. First and foremost, I feel like if Pickett were to start, he would have to be Ryan Leaf level abysmal to get pulled. And I don't think he's shown anything in the preseason or practices to suggest that that's what's going to happen. And the other side of that is his leash will be a lot longer than Mitch's. So, like I said, you have to be very bad to get pulled. But I don't think that even if that were to happen, which I don't think would, you can pull a rookie and sit him down if it got to that point. Hopefully it wouldn't, and I don't think it will. But that's a part that I also disagree with, that there's this idea that if you had to sit Pickett, it would ruin him forever. You could do that theoretically, but I don't think it would come to that. I think the whole point of this quarterback competition, the whole point of this offseason was to let it play out and may the best man win. And to me, it feels like Kenny has shown enough to be that man.
Well, yeah.
And it's really as simple as that. And I tweeted about this morning. You've just mentioned that you've seen me arguing with people, and I need to do a better job of just letting stuff roll off my shoulder and not care, because I'm going to be in therapy one day and they're going to be asking me, why are you so angry? Why are you always talking about the Steelers quarterbacks? Like we're 15 years past that battle. And I'm going to be like, because this one guy with 7 digits at the end of his name, I feel like I just can't.
With the egg profile picture, joined.
It's because
joined
I feel
August 2022.
yeah, the people that have like 3 followers. Not that matters, but it's this small stuff that I feel personally insulted when people bring up points that they think I haven't already thought about or dissected. And this whole time, really since the first preseason game, Kenny has had this energy when he's on the field with the offense that things just go better. They just seem easier for Pickett. He's dealing with a lot of the same starters and teammates that Mitch has dealt with, that he's playing with these past few games, and he does better. I get it. Like Mitch had a solid last performance here. I wasn't personally blown away. I thought the deep ball was nice, and I thought he had 2 other nice throws during the 2-minute drill that helped people on Twitter feel like, not me, that he has solidified his spot as the starter. Look, I feel like it's not a good thing that it took him the whole first half to get in the end zone, number one. Number two, there was a dropped interception that resulted in 3 points for the Steelers. That right after the dropped interception, there was an illegal formation. And as a starting veteran quarterback, he should notice that. And it's amazing to me the amount of, oh, there's your starter. That's why you start Trubisky week 1. That's it, folks. There was so much of that going on after the 2-minute drill touchdown. And yeah, it was impressive, man. But you know who else has been impressive in 2-minute? Kenny Pickett. So I wasn't totally floored and just like immediately thought like, all right, that's it. Like Mitch is starting now. I still believe truthfully that there's a chance that Tomlin will choose to go with Pickett. There's still a chance, and it would make sense to me.
Yeah, preach it, brother. Preach it. You were saying a lot of the same things that were on my mind, particularly of the stalling offense. I think I would already say, and this is why we don't try and talk off air. Most people probably don't know the process behind the scenes, behind the curtain here, but we say some points and I'm like, wait a minute, did I already say that or not? But again,
Save
it
that for the
was like,
show. Save that for the show.
yeah, it was like, I don't want to see the same offense from last year struggle and go 3 and out. And that's the way I felt watching this with Mitch Trubisky up until the 2-minute drill against the prevent defense with the preseason defense against preseason guys. Now, there were some first teams, there were some second teams. We know Jared Goff didn't play on the other side, and on the with the Steelers defense, you didn't see like Alex Highsmith, for example. You saw enough promising things with the Steelers defense, I think, throughout this whole thing. But to just jump in and say, well, I was listening this morning, Solomon Wilcots, Doug Whaley on SiriusXM NFL Radio, and they mentioned like Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins and him getting pulled and put back in and stunting development and things like that. And I'm thinking to myself, how many different head coaches, how many offensive coordinators, how many different this and that, changing his offense all around, the guys he throws to and everything like that. Like there might be a little more stability now, but it's still a new head coach this year. And those things factor in. Those things played hell with Baker Mayfield. For years, you had Freddie Kitchens, you had Todd Haley for a spell there. Greg Williams was the interim coach when they fired Hugh Jackson.
Yeah.
And then they go over to, Stefanski, and Kevin Stefanski gets in there, and it's all over the map, and then the guy's playing hurt. There's just all kinds of different things. And I think it's kind of one thing I think is 100% nonsense is saying, well, behind this offensive line, you got to play Trubisky. It's fine if he's the pinata. Let him get it beat around. But most people recognize enough. Yeah, let this guy get beat around. Let's not hurt the guy that's going to be with. We acknowledge that Kenny Pickett's the future of the franchise, but we don't want to get him hurt yet. We're going to live in our fears. Cincinnati Bengals did not live in those fears. Their offensive line was trash last year, and look where they went. And I feel like the offensive line is less trash with Kenny Pickett in there because he's more decisive, doesn't hold the ball as long. There's a difference between the short pass game that Pickett's been pulled apart for in this preseason. And I believe that was like to get into a rhythm, to help a young player along, actual design plays. Whereas Mitch Trubisky is an experienced pro. And he's still, how many times did he target Najee Harris where I think there's like one play where I could say, okay, that was definitely designed for a little release. He just turned right in midfield and caught a pass. And I'm like, okay, that's a design play. It might have been the primary rate. It might have been short, long. And he looked long real quick, went short. But he had a couple nice throws downfield. I'm not going to completely dump all over him, but like you said, there's something that's just like, it's your gut feeling watching this, that it's like something still isn't in place. And throughout that first half, and he let him play the whole first half. This guy's your starter, Zach. Do you let him play the whole first half? Do you need the whole first half to evaluate your QB1? Who's supposed to be your QB1? That seemed backwards to me a little bit. And I know Pickett didn't necessarily get everything quite done there as well, but there's a lot in the national media that talks too much about, well, Mitch has been running with just the ones, and we know that hasn't been true. He's throwing to Steve Sims while he's out there, and Miles Boykin's been out there, and then they give some of the same dudes over to Pickett throughout. In the first preseason game, you didn't even have Najee, you didn't have Pat Freiermuth. I don't think Deontay played in that one either. So they ended up playing with some of the same players, even though Pickett came in third with that game. But still, Pickett's getting the job done with the guys.
We say Jaylen Warren.
Yeah. Well, Jaylen Warren we'll be talking about in uno momento on Jaylen Warren. Even Miles Boykin, for that matter. It may have come around, and it has to do with, I don't think the injuries to TJ Watt, I don't think was anything serious. Who else got dinged? Deontay. Didn't sound like it. Sound precautionary.
Man, my mom already texted me this morning, and I had to calm her down. I was like, Tomlin said, I'm pretty sure, unless I was dreaming, that he said Watt and Deontay, high chance they both would have came back into the game if it was regular season. I panicked when they said TJ's knee, because they showed the injury, air quotes, on camera, and like nothing happened. And I was like, those are the worst kinds of injuries, because I don't even see what happened wrong with him.
I know.
But Tomlin claims he would have came back in. And I'm with you on Boykin too. Boykin really has impressed me with these final few opportunities to shine. And I'm with you on Boykin for sure.
Yeah, I turned around, but I don't want to leave quarterback just yet. Let's throw out some stats. People were throwing around different numbers, and you see Kenny Pickett's numbers, and you're like, okay, is this really, how impressive is this? 29 of 36, 80.6 completion percentage, 261 yards with 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's taken 2 sacks. It's good for a 124.7 rating. Mitchell Trubisky, 24 of 34, 70.6. So he's 10 percentage points behind. Still absurd. 70% is absurd still. I mean, when you're getting above 60, you have to be above 60 to be an NFL quarterback. If you could stay consistent in 65, 66, Ben's been in that range. He hasn't been at range 62, but that's where you need to be at, right? And so that's fine for Trubisky, 283 yards. His yards per attempt is 8.3 to Pickett 7.3. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. But Mason Rudolph's also there too. 26 of 39, 66.7, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 1 sack. So he's at a 98.2 rating. Mitch Trubisky 115.2 and 124.7 for Kenny. So those are the numbers, and it looks like we said, you can throw pretty much any of these guys out there. I don't want to panic and be like, look, we got to save Kenny because he's going to get broken. That was the other thing that Will Kotz and Doug Whaley were talking about this morning. They were talking about, like we said, Tim Couch, not Derek Carr, but David Carr. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I'm like, we haven't seen any 2 tight end sets in the preseason. I think that'll be a little bit of a change. There's different things that they're attempting or trying to do. It just felt to me like Mitch it reminds me of Josh Dobbs a few years ago. Like, okay, I looked for one guy. He's not there. Let's start running. And it's not necessarily because the line's bad. When there's pressure, okay, good. You move out. You roll out. Kenny looked like he had all day there on his play. The one play, and he rolled out and he didn't really have anybody, and there was good coverage. And you're going to have that with the other team just playing ball and rising to the occasion too. The Steelers score on all these drives, bunch of Chris Boswell field goals, a beautiful 54-yarder, by the way. So, but do I want that to be that way again? I mean, young Ben was a lot that way, where it was, off the foot of Jeff Reed and defense. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's the way it felt. If Trubisky is the QB1 or the starter, that's where this team was headed. Manage the game, do what's necessary, and hopefully leave it to the defense, which I think the defense will get to them too. I think they'll be just fine. I didn't see anything that was too alarming other than DeMonte Casey breaking his wrist, I think, or he fractured his wrist. He had some type of wrist injury, and it looks like he's going to be placed on IR. And he could come back, but that's gonna carve out like that first. Did they put IR up to 4 weeks now? It was 3 weeks. I think they may have modified that this season with 17 games and not all the COVID stuff. But he's out probably at least 4 to 6, I think, with the surgery and injury as it is. He was probably a big part of the plans, and he was also playing special teams. But as we move along, and go to talk about some of these other positions. We talked about the 53 on the last episode, myself and Brian. We'll cover a little bit of that here because we know that that's going to drop by 4 p.m. tomorrow, Tuesday. So we don't want to chew too much off the bone with some of the players because then we're going to come back and talk about them. But we will talk about maybe a few of these guys here. I don't want to leave completely off of quarterbacks, but Casey going to IR might be an opportunity for somebody else that wasn't going to make this 53 now, because he was definitely a lock for this roster, and that might help them roster another running back or receiver or wherever we end up talking about. But I will close my thoughts on the quarterbacks by saying this. Mitch Trubisky, if he's the starter, I don't feel as comfortable with it. I don't believe in the back and forth, like you said. It's easier to bench him. I think it puts more pressure, actually, on Mitchell Trubisky that you can't make a mistake or this guy's looking over your shoulder, I got another thing to kind of throw at you. Yeah, it puts pressure on him. It's going to make him, it might make him nervous. It might make him do things that he wouldn't otherwise do if he was comfortable and definitely knew he was the one. Does Kenny have that same kind of pressure at being benched? I don't think so. He knows he was drafted to be the future of the team. But if you go with Mitch Trubisky now, do you make Kenny the backup? Or how far do you feel you need to develop Kenny? Or does Kenny go to QB3 holding the clipboard and not having a helmet on game days, and you use Mason Rudolph as your backup? That's what a lot of people also aren't talking about if you're talking about the developmental aspect. It's funny how we can, in the same breath, maybe not we, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I've got the pen here too, bud. You got me. I heard the clicking and I had to do the clicky clacky here. But it's funny how in the same breath we could talk about, I didn't say Mason QB1 necessarily here, but how we can almost like manage to put Kenny in any of these spots. I think that's pretty crazy. It just goes to show that he's a good enough player that you can maybe trust and slide in a spot. And I think that's still in the back of Mike Tomlin's mind and why he hasn't named a starting quarterback as of right now.
I think it's a good thing too good thing for Team Start Kenny over here. If the fact that Tomlin hasn't come out and said, yeah, Mitch is the starter. I think the longer they take to decide, the better it is for Kenny Pickett's chances to start week 1, because I think they're really looking at everything and evaluating everything. I'm talking practice tapes and of course the game film, but I think they really want to get this right because it is so close, and that's what's funny is I don't expect every single listener, viewer, 2%er, who we do appreciate very much, to remember every single thing that we say on this show. I don't remember everything that is said on my favorite shows that I listen to outside of us. But I have said since we drafted Pickett, since the idea of him potentially not playing this year was floated, I said, man, if this competition between him, Mason, and Mitch is close at all, if it's close at all, start Kenny Pickett. And it could not be closer. We're talking a difference of 20 pass yards between Mitch and Kenny has one more touchdown. Like I'm not a stat slave. I like to use that term. I think I made it up. I'm not sure, but you can't just look at the numbers. The stat slut. I like that.
And you could shame me. I'm a stat slut. I do. Because numbers don't lie. I hate to say it.
Yeah, but you're like one that doesn't go all the way. Like you don't fully give it up. Like you're like a celibate stat slut.
I don't know. I mentioned. Can I throw this one out here because I've been using it on Twitter? I don't know that I've said it on the show. While I slide in real quick. What was it? 46 games with 25 or more passes for Mitchell Trubisky as a starter with Chicago. That's 46 of his 50. And I think 29 of those with one touchdown pass or fewer. And I'd have to grab the actual numbers. Off the top of my head, it was something like 15 touchdowns to 26 interceptions in those 29 games and a dozen fumbles. The 12 is correct. The TD-INT ratio, it's more picks than touchdowns. It's a generalization. I'd have to pull those numbers. But I have to throw that out there because I was a stat whore for that. And I was arguing with somebody online over it all weekend. And I was just kind of like, yo, 29 games, that's just not... and it's over the course of the whole 4 years. It's not just 2017 as a rookie year. It's like a couple games here, dotted around the landscape. It's called inconsistency.
They paint a picture for sure, and there is truth behind them. They do help. They are what you reference for history, and they aren't totally useless. My thing with this right now is that people will very quickly, I'm sure there's comments as I speak right now below my head saying a lot of those stats are against third teamers or whatever for Kenny Pickett. So I acknowledge that, but the fact of the matter is, it is super close when you look at the stats and when you look at how the offenses have moved. I think that it's close enough, or it's so close that it goes exactly with what I was saying before. When we got Pickett, I would just start Kenny at this point. Why wait? Mitch isn't night and day better. He's not prime Brett Favre. He's not Alex Smith. And now we're going to get made out to be as like the number one Mitch Trubisky haters on this show. And that's not true.
Just because I said that too. It's just...
I would just start the kid at this point. He's shown enough for me. And you said this great. I like this point you made about how it might just be a very reminiscent offense of when Ben was young. If Mitch Trubisky starts, just defense, run the ball like 20 pass attempts a game. And if that's what you're signing up for, if that's what Mitch is going to give you, that's what Kenny can give you too, man. And take the upside. If you can have that plus upside, take the upside. Kyle Brandt was saying something just like this so well this morning on Good Morning Football. I already tweeted about it. I'm sure you can find it yourself if you want to. But Kyle Brandt, this was, of course, a topic of discussion today on Good Morning Football. And he and the other co-host, Jamie, who is Kay Adams' replacement, they are of team start Pickett. They think it makes sense. They think you do it. And then Jason McCourty and Garofolo are still believing that you should start Trubisky for reasons that we've already dove into that we both disagree with largely. And at this point, we've argued back so much to those points. I feel like even the people that are making those points know about our rebuttals, but they just are ignoring them. They feel their way and we feel our way. And I think it's too close to just be like, okay, now that Kenny has made all these steps towards starter potential, now that he has checked every box, now sit down. Why?
Yeah, well, it's my Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert. I understand Tyrod Taylor got punctured in the lung or whatever that happened is bad luck with the Chargers, but it's not like they put him back out there. And these teams that rolled with like Herbert or rolled with Burrow, you know that Pickett's going to be the future. I don't agree with one thing that you said.
Okay, let's hear it.
He didn't play against just all like threes and, Chick-fil-A employees of the future or whatever.
Who, Pickett?
Yeah,
Oh
like,
no, I know. I'm
yeah,
saying
yeah. But
some of the
that's what
stats
they
show that.
think. That's what
Yeah,
drives
yeah,
me
yeah.
crazy because like Seattle certainly was leaving a lot of their twos in there, like
Yeah.
Boye Mafe, for example, and whatever secondary they end up with, because it's like a total disaster there with who they have. So not necessarily that they're going to be good, but just that the Jaguars were playing, that was against a lot of the ones on their defense too. It's a
I'm impressed with what
hodgepodge.
Kenny Pickett's done. I'm preparing for the trolls. I'm
Yeah.
preemptively saying I'm aware that some of these numbers he put up weren't against all starters, but some of them were. I'm impressed with what I've seen from Pickett, obviously.
But here's the thing in the NFL. TJ Watt gets hurt, so now the Steelers aren't playing a starter. So do you think that like the Bengals care about that or the Browns care about that when they're matching up against each other? They're probably happy they don't have to see Watt on the other, lining up on the other side of the field, and that probably helps the other player that's been playing.
Yeah.
It's just Trubisky stats. I should look and see in that NFC North how much of them are against the Detroit Lions, to be completely honest. I mean, they've been a dumpster fire poverty franchise, especially when he was over there in the North, and the Packers didn't have maybe necessarily the strongest of defense and stuff like that. So, I mean, we could do the stats picking until the cows come home. Just my point of that was he's only had like one game, I think, where he's had a 6 touchdown game. He's never had a 4 or 5 touchdown game. So you don't expect him to come out. Everybody thinks he's going to like turn this leaf and blossom into this like Peyton Manning-esque player just because they think that the Bears teams were trash. The Bears teams he played on were not trash. They had a great defense. You have one of his linemen now and James Daniels on the Steelers roster as it stands. He had Anthony Miller there. They tried to draft Kevin White as well as Miller to help Taylor Gabriel, but he had a number 1 in Allen Robinson. They brought in a prized free agent tight end with Trey Burton. His leading receiver was Tariq Cohen, who was mostly a receiving back, but it just goes to show you that a lot of those yards and catches went to Burton when healthy, or Tariq Cohen. And Jordan Howard, even though we make fun of his yards per attempt or whatever, was around or hovering around 1,000-yard rushing season or two there with their postseason. Oh, they got to the postseason, but they were a trash franchise, right? They sucked, but they made the postseason. And then people say the same thing. You got the real fans, right? We're just a bunch of homers here. The real fans think the Steelers are only going to win 5 or 6 games, but Trubisky will turn it all around too, and then they'll be, a 11, 12 win team. I can't say it anyway.
I've been called not a real fan for not rooting for Mitch already, even though it's
I'm
not what I'm doing.
not rooting for
not
Mitch.
A real fan for not rooting for Mitch, which isn't happening.
I'll tell you what it is. Me and you are bringing down the hype, this runaway train that people are like, oh, he's definitely the QB1. Oh, he's definitely the starter. Oh, look what the Steelers can do with him. Look how mobile. And like most of the running I see with him is like for his life. Like he's not making the read or he's not finding some people downfield. And he did. And Deontay had a great catch. And Pickens, oh man, George Pickens, just ridiculous. They went back to that slant too.
See.
They went back to that slant. They went back to that slant that I think Mitch didn't get that slant on the first try to Pickens with Kuda knocked it down, blocking. Yeah, he got his arm in there, great coverage, but then they went back the other direction and ran it the opposite way. It was like flipping the play in Madden to Steve Sims later on, and that was the touchdown, and that was good to see, and that may have like put you in the, okay, we could roll with Mitch territory, and that's fine too. And I sympathize with it. I get it. And I'm not totally against it. I just, for the reasons you said, like, oh, the offensive line's going to suck. Oh, it's going to totally ruin this kid. Look, he's either got it or he doesn't got it. And you got to find out. And there's other teams that are much worse franchises in the process of rebuilding, like the Chargers when they got Herbert, or even the Buffalo Bills for that matter with Allen. Like, let the kid play. Maybe let the kid play. And you also have this window, and that's that rookie quarterback salary window where you're not paying them $50 million a season that the Steelers have right now. And that clock started ticking already. So week 1 on the clock. That's why I think all of these things, there's also this like misconception about Mitchell Trubisky's contract. Sorry if I'm beating a dead horse and mentioning this yet again, but if he doesn't play, he doesn't get incentives. He has a lower cap hit than Mason Rudolph. He's not making a whole lot of money. He has to play. He has to have starts. He has to have snaps. He has to have touchdown passes. He has to have yardage. He has to have all of these different things in order to make some kind of like semblance of what a lot of his peers are making around the league. His contract otherwise is backup quarterback money, and the Steelers can afford to keep him and Rudolph. That's the other thing that I see. Oh, they'll save money, they'll do this. Next year would be the year where they say, well, I don't know what the cutoff is on the contract, if it's one of those things where he has to be cut maybe before the draft or something like that in terms of Mitchell Trubisky, like March, beginning of free agency, or else he's owed a certain bonus and blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, he's like 2.3 million, 2.6 million against the cap, and they save 8 million. 8 million is like getting an Ogunjobi or a Miles Jack or somebody on your squad as far as the free agency side of things. So I think I'm done with the quarterback stuff for now, because we'll be talking about it more. They're going to announce somebody at some point, and it's not like this will ever be over. This is only going to be over.
No, me too. And my closing statement is, look how hard it is, like, to these people still to try and pigeonhole the idea of, like, Mitch needs to start, because they have to figure out all these reasons and hop from one to the next to the next to the next. The fact of the matter is, Kenny's looked better, man. Like, as a whole, he's looked better, and the offense operates better under Kenny. There's more upside under Kenny. We don't have to, like, figure out these particular reasons, like, oh, well, we gave Kenny this contract. Oh, well, we promised him he would play. Oh, well, the line's bad. Like, I just think you're trying so much harder to force the idea of Mitch starting, and Kenny would just be natural, you know? But yeah, we can move on now.
Yeah, I feel it. All the wide receivers, we said 5 would probably make the roster. Miles Boykin, I think, gets a thumbs up in this game. I think it's going to go to 6.
I think 6.
Well, I said 5 for sure.
And, okay.
And we don't. What's going on with Kelvin Austin, man? I mean, is he going to start out on like an IR
I'm starting to get really worried.
That? So maybe it is 5, and he's like on IR or something like that. I don't know. He's not out there, so that's something to consider too.
Senquez Golson, man, I'm having like Vietnam flashbacks, like that meme, because anybody who misses camp, like the whole camp basically, which he didn't miss the whole camp, but a majority of it at this point. I'm worried about when we're going to get to see Calvin Austin. I hope I'm wrong on that, because I still have a lot of hope for him. But if he gets to IR immediately, how's that work? Does that mean they still have an open spot, or does he take up a spot doing that?
Well, he's got to make the 53 to be eligible to come back this season. So what they could do is like a catch release. So somebody like Steve Sims is more than likely like a full. Sims might. I don't know. He might be.
I think there's 0% chance they release Austin.
Oh, no. They won't release Austin. They'll keep him on the 53 and then place him on IR, but that means somebody else can't make the roster and be re-added until, you got to do that catch release. So he's got to make the 53. Somebody like Steve Sims or Miles Boykin would be cut, pass through waivers. If they're a tenured NFL player of 4 seasons, then they're unrestricted free agent, which is why you see some of the different names that might be. I remember like. What was it? Was it Steven Johnson was the guy he used to play? He was a linebacker, inside linebacker. And that was one of the cases. I think that happened 2 consecutive years where he was cut and then brought back, or he was brought on late. And that's the reason why it's a lot easier in that case, because they notify him ahead of time, and some other team isn't just going to snatch him off the waiver wire. But you might be right with the 6 wide receivers. We did all the numbers and trying to figure it out. If it's 8 offensive linemen, how many tight ends, because you got Connor Hayward in that mix is like a fullback, quasi tight end, quasi photo H-back, whatever, offensive weapon, Jalen Samuels, whatever you want to throw out there. So I don't know how that plays with it. Jay Sternberger had that big drop from Mason Rudolph. That ball was a dime. And you got to haul those in. And I mean, he had an opportunity. Raider didn't see as much time. And he's a guy that could be brought back, probably put on practice squad too when we were talking about that as far as the skill positions. But I think Boykin, I know I've been remiss. I hadn't talked about him a lot because I was so impressed with Anthony Miller. I just thought he was like really just going through the motions. And I saw a nice play from him on special teams too. And considering what just happened with KZ, I think that opens up a slot somewhere on the roster. And particularly, of course, what we just said about Austin. We don't know like his health and future and how they might have to manage that on the business side of football. Running backs, however, I don't think you could let Jaylen Warren walk away whatsoever. Jaylen Warren got those second team reps. He's been able to run. He's able to hit the corner. He's able to catch the ball.
Secrets out on Jaylen Warren. You got people tweeting about his like yards per carry after contact shit. Like he's got football nerds paying attention now too. So that means the NFL is aware that the Steelers may have stole someone in Jaylen Warren there. With Boykin, I think we didn't do anything wrong with the initial breakdown of the 90-man roster with Boykin on it, because at the time he wasn't shining terribly great. He was doing well, like nothing against Boykin, but he wasn't doing anything out of this world. And it was noticeable that Anthony Miller was getting more serious time. He was being viewed as more valuable, it seemed, by the Steelers, and had more steam. So when he got injured, that the battle became wide open. And I believe I said that exact thing when Anthony Miller was announced out for the season. I said, well, that sixth spot, if you think they were going to have six, that sixth spot is wide open now. Literally, I think Gunner's still safe as your 5.
Oh yeah.
And Boykin, I think, is the lead dog for that sixth spot now. Vaughn's done well, but he's a classic candidate to be able to make it back to practice squad if they really like what he's done. And Sims is another polarizing one. I still think he's replaceable. I think he plays well. He plays hard. He has a good skill set. But if gun to my head, I'd rather have Miles Boykin, maybe because of his size and recency bias. I know Sims had the touchdown from Mitch, but Boykin had that really nice back shoulder throw and catch from Pickett.
Yes.
So you're splitting hairs with those two, but right now I would prefer Boykin. I can see them going Sims. Sims fits the bill of like a classic Steeler receiver. There's plenty of them that have had that type of mold of that shifty, smaller dude, but can also play outside, even though he's a smaller, shifty dude. So I think it's coming down to Boykin and Sims for that final spot, definitively. And I guess it's up to the Steelers if they want to keep 5 or 6 from that point on. And tight end, I think, is pretty cut and dry now at this point as well.
Yeah.
I think Connor Hayward gets that 3rd spot. And if they're able to keep 4, I think it'll be Raider. But again, it depends on if they keep 6 receivers or not to open up that 4th spot for a tight end.
We're talking about this game, and what about that play with Hayward? Like, it was barely beyond the line of scrimmage with Pickett. Like, they let Pickett uncork like 3 passes in a row, and it just seemed like on 3rd and 10 that was such an odd choice. I don't know if that's where it almost felt like that's where the ball was supposed to go, as opposed to
I was coming down pretty hard on Mitch for doing that during the first half, because there were a couple of 3rd and longs I felt like that he threw it well short of the sticks. But yeah, if that's what the play design is calling for, I don't know. That's what's tough about doing this armchair evaluations of ours,
especially in the preseason, because they're probably trying to work Hayward in specifically for that reason. So, well, the running backs though, are you with I don't have Snell as the backup anymore. I have Warren, and that makes Snell expendable in my mind. I think McFarland is shown enough. McFarland, let's see, is the leading rusher of the preseason for the Steelers, 11 to 63 with 63. Steve Sims is second with 2 for 49. So the jet sweep stuff and being able to return punts, I don't know, man. It makes it tough. I mean, Sims has been around, so we'll see.
The jet sweeps, though, bro, man, the Steelers got to learn to fake it every once in a while. That's why it gets blown up. If you're going to give it to the receiver every single time, defenses can key in on that, man. Like, fake it once in a while. And that's why it got blown up a couple times last game. It works if you can confuse the defense, but not if you give it to the guy every time.
So here's something that the stats nerds, the stats sluts will pick up on here too.
Print the shirts.
Yeah, Jaylen Warren, 16 carries for 48 yards. And let's see. Benny Snell, 8 for 15. That's a 1.9 average. But it wasn't much better with Najee Harris yesterday, 4 for 10, 2.5. You have
Benny Snell's expendable, but you got that whole special teams argument, man. It's you, the person at home, the viewer. You have to decide, is it important to you or not? Because there are people that are like, dude, you can get somebody to cover kicks. It's like, yeah, I know, man, but
you don't work that way.
It's tougher than you think. Yeah.
Look at that. Look at the botch at the end of that game. If that was a close game and they gave the ball right back to Detroit, you tell me that's not important. You're telling me it's not important. Boswell misses or the blocked kick. Oh, you just get anybody in there and then they miss an assignment. Don't know what they're doing. Get your punter hurt. We've seen Boswell get hurt on a trick play too. Remember that against Cleveland, and they couldn't even kick an extra point. Oh my goodness, was that crazy? But yeah, McFarland, the 5.7. I know a lot of that's on the first game and against the Seahawks, but I still think I think they know who he is. He's got some special teams role too. But you just can't have. It's not like you need a bazillion return guys that all do the same function. So you don't need Gunner and then Sims too. And you don't need, if you have Sims, then you don't need McFarland returning kicks. So it's like it rolls downhill, so to speak. Speaking of receiving, Tyler Vaughn, 8 for 112. Pickens, 8 for 84. That's 10.5 per catch. Fryermuth 5 for 80. Deontay 3 for 71. His is by far. I mean, Chase Claypool only has one this whole time. We're missing an action guy there too. 1 for 29.
Two, but they took it away from Kenny because they want to see Kenny win, bro.
Yeah, you're onto something, man. Instead of the backwards cap, we need to get you a tinfoil one. Gunner 6 for 69. Nice. I wasn't aware, but then you also have Miles Boykin 6 for 67. That's good for 11-2, 11-5.
Gunner Olszewski seems like a classic 69 joke guy. I bet he finds those very funny.
And as he should, because we're all very mature, young, or somewhat middle-aged. I guess I'm getting into my middle ages now. And then there's Brian, who lived during the Middle Ages, and someone will complain about that. Probably Brian. Brian does not care. He ages like a fine wine too. Out there doing his warrior runs and his biking and everything. I mean, a dude had a flat on his bicycle tire. I think he just throws it like over his shoulder, like the Incredible Hulk, and then walks it back. And uphill too. Pretty impressive stuff. Anyways,
he needs to go on Naked and Afraid or Survivor or something.
I was thinking he reminds me more of like Breaking Bad or something, which I'm not even sure he's a fan of that show. He's more like a Walter White. Like I could see Brian has like a whole like criminal enterprise behind the scenes, and that's why we don't see him as often.
Yeah, you see flash to his home right now. He's got like 10 computers. We're on all of them right now. He's watching all the different angles of the show.
Yeah, you know what? Programming note though. We might go live tomorrow, and we may have Brian available. So we'll see. We're thinking about it. Just let everybody know.
You know what, dude? I do want to say this though. I was encouraged. Not that I was doubting him at this point at all. I mean, he's still leading for Rookie of the Year. I think him and Kenny still are. But it was great to see Pickens kind of reemerge after he had that super exciting first game against the Seahawks, and he did very well in camp. Obviously, was the camp phenom. But his previous game, he was a little quiet, so to see him stick out in a big way. Or did we just play the Seahawks? I'm mixing up my teams. But anyway, you know what I mean?
Lions.
He had the big touchdown.
Yeah.
And then
Lions, Jaguars, all of the big name contenders this year.
The Jaguars. Okay, I'm mixing up the teams because they're all so great.
That's okay.
Yeah. But anyway, Pickens kind of had a time there where he just was just not doing anything like superstar-esque, not doing anything wrong. But so to see him kind of bounce back and play well again in this final game was super encouraging and good to know that he's probably going to carry that into the regular season because, he's something special. They got a video of him again pushing a cornerback down. And I'm telling you, I wonder if you can bet on the over-under of amount of cornerbacks that George Pickens is going to put on their ass. Not even for a pass play, just shoving them down.
That's great. And I wanted to finish with the receivers. Here's the Steve Sims stat. If you're going to pour yourself out to it, it's 7 for 34, 4.9 average. So not the best of opportunities there. But he got the touchdown. He got the tutty for 9 off the slant, off the quick slant. So offensive line, like I said, everybody's freaking out about it. I think, probably you think, Aiden Hutchinson's going to be a dude. He's going to be a problem in the NFL.
I do think that.
Yeah.
But I want some of what you're sleeping on because I am worried about the offensive line. I'm not going to say I'm as overly concerned. I don't think it's going to be. People think it's going to regress, and I'm like, nah, not necessarily. But that guy he should be in. There's Mitch in the background of that photo too. Dan Moore, 65. Living in Mitch's nightmares. He's going to get him killed. I'm disappointed in myself because I really thought that Moore was going to pick it up better, man. But I feel like I've lied to friends and family.
Bad day in the office, though. 90-some degrees, 4:30 in the afternoon. A little sleepy, a little sluggish. It just... Or is this what we're going to have come to expect all the time? Because I saw him pick up a couple nice ones, but I mean, the bonehead penalties, you can't have them. Those are just... That's the whole reason we're talking about Mitch versus Kenny. Mitch probably goes down and I don't know. Does he lead a touchdown drive? That's the thing that I think that's the thing we've had the most against Mason Rudolph as well is drives that don't end in touchdowns, drives that end in field goals, even going back to the 2019 season. And that's kind of my same going back to the quarterback thing, my feeling with it. But I'm not worried about Daniels. I'm not worried about Mason Cole. I'm not even worried about Chooks for that matter. I don't see enough that's I feel is too problematic. And as long as the quarterbacks can push the ball downfield somewhat compared to what Ben did, they can't put 8 They can't put all 11 in the box. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They got to respect something. So that's going to help the run game a little bit better as well. And all of the quarterbacks have the ability to do that. Like, none of them have been pure hot garbage in the preseason. Jumping over to the defense, I thought defense was fine. Did you see DeMarvin Leal get some extra snaps in there? I thought Ogunjobi was okay. Well, I should rephrase this, because TJ Watt looks like a monster as usual. Cam Hayward looks like a grown-ass man as usual. Leal he got a lot of time, and he got in there kind of with the ones a little bit, if you were going to call them the ones at the beginning of the game. And let me see. I'm trying to think who else was in there. Ogunjobi, Tyson Lualu was in a little bit as well. Wormley, of course, was in there because he's going to be a starter or pseudo starter. He'll be a high rotation guy, maybe with like Hayward or I don't know, Lulu. That'll be interesting actually to kind of see who's going to be paired up. Probably Ogunjobi, I would think, would be the first guy out there as a starter.
Yeah. Ogunjobi's the starter, 100%.
With the two-man, like kind of two-man front, not the traditional 3-4, like if they're playing like that kind of nickel package or something. That's where I'm thinking. That's where my mind's drifting. But I didn't have a problem with a lot of that. Devin Bush did get held pretty bad on the one play, and it came back because that looked like really sick. Like, oh my goodness, dude, what are you doing? And then when you got to see the replay,
he had really good redemption, though. You know, I saw people tearing him up on Twitter, and he was playing bad until that point. But that stuff on fourth down was really nice. And again, I got well actually on Twitter, and people were like, it was actually Miles Jack who forced that. I'm like, that's great, man. They're a team. You know, I mean, Devin made the tackle, so it was a team effort there. And just before we jump totally to defense, offensive line too, all the more reason to go with Kenny, because Kenny has literally displayed on tape the ability to seemingly perform better with offensive line struggles than Mitch did. Mitch hasn't performed poorly with them. Kenny has performed better, in my opinion. Gets the ball out faster and just when he knows how to move in the pocket and avoid the rush better. It just seems like if you brought down an alien from Mars and was like, who's the veteran here between these two, and showed him the breakdown, I guarantee some of them would say Kenny looks more experienced. So, I mean, the offensive line woes, I get that they're concerning to people, but it's more of a reason to go with Pickett, in my opinion.
That's what I meant by Mitch holding the ball. That's why I meant by saying the Josh Dobbs thing, because at one point Dobbs moved the ball, won a backup job. Then all of a sudden he was like staring into the clouds and not seeing it. And that's happening in Cleveland too. People were pumping him up the week before. And I'm like, why? Just because he escaped getting like totally thrown to the ground and then had his jersey ripped. Okay. And then everybody else is like 20 yards down the field covering. So he's got this wide open like pathway to just run where he wants. To break a single tackle. That's possible with professional players, you know.
One of the funniest things that happens on the field when a guy like thinks he's or a defender thinks he got a guy to bounce and didn't, and then the guy just has free reign to run in the end zone. Pretty sure Le'Veon had a couple touchdowns like that back in the day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Bush, rag on him some. Spillane came out there and didn't do much more than to raise the level there either. There's concerns there, but Miles Jack had that nice stuff. I saw that. Having Jack there is nice. It's promising, but there's one thing. As
disappointing as Mike Daniels has looked, Miles Jack has been a nice balance for the free agent crop here, because he's looked like his all-pro self, and I've been very encouraged from what I've seen from Miles Jack in a positive way. And Leal too, Leal's making his presence known, and I'm excited for him because it seems like this draft class, man, if we're just going off preseason, which what else is there to go off at this point? The draft
training
class
camp
looks like freaking hit. Yeah, training camp.
Training camp. Yeah, wait a minute. We've got to throw another guy out here. Did you notice Mark Robinson was out there in was it the dime package, nickel package? He was the only inside linebacker out there on the field. He was roaming around by himself. Mike Tomlin has a habit of finding these guys like with that. Maybe they have like 1 year of experience, or maybe they didn't even play this position in college. And he takes like a Rosie Nix that was a nose tackle, make him a fullback, and take Alejandro Villanueva. Well, although he played like 4 different positions all over the place, but defensive end. Gentry quarterback, wasn't he? Originally enters a quarterback 1 year as a tight end, and you got to take the putty and mold him. Right here, 93. Keep an eye on this guy. He almost had a pick yesterday, and that was off the fingertips of Buddy Johnson, who may have done just enough to stick to the roster too, because I was having like 8 linebackers just because I thought they'd keep more secondary. Now it's interesting to see what they do, because what's his name? Rashid. He got the in as starters. Was he not wearing 50? The old Ryan Shaver. Oh no, Delonte Scott's wearing 50. 46, long snapper number. So, yeah, they were trying to get Delonte Scott some looks too, and he got some pressure in.
Yeah, I'm
And
torn on Buddy
interesting.
Johnson, dude. I'm very torn on Buddy Johnson because I was excited about that draft pick when it happened. I like the skill set he offered. I called him a current day new age linebacker when we made the pick. But Mark Robinson, I think as a whole, has had a better preseason and played well last game too. So yeah, I think Buddy Johnson had his best game yet. But how many guys are they keeping for inside backer? Because I guess when you go through it, Robinson I would put as the fourth best middle linebacker, but behind Jack, Bush, Spillane, Robinson. Then are they going to keep a fifth middle linebacker? Do they usually, or is that where you just are? That's it, four middle backers. That's where I'm stuck with what to do with Buddy Johnson because I think Robinson has earned a role over him.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Originally I was thinking five, and not even including Marcus Allen, who was in street clothes again yesterday. And that's putting like just one edge rusher, and that's not as uncommon as you'd think. Anthony Chickalo was the lone guy behind Bud Dupree and TJ Watt a few years ago. That's when they had Ola and Tuzar Skipper, both. They were on the practice squad. So maybe Hamilcar, Rashid, that's somebody that nobody else is going to end up just snagging away, or like a Quincy Roche, for example. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody's going to grab them,
keep an eye on him.
Scott. Yeah, you never know. And you know what? I was making those. We talked about this ages ago, Zach, that who's going to get picked up that the Steelers saw play on the other side of the field for the Seahawks, for the Jaguars, or for the Lions. And Justin Jackson was running around out there like a nut, and Craig Reynolds, and but I think they're okay with the running back situation now. I think they found Jaylen Warren, but that's originally what we were talking about. We're like, hey, do the Lions have too many people like on this depth chart that they might cut somebody here? The Steelers see him in preseason, like them, pick him up, put him. It's not like Snoop Connor is going to get cut from the Jaguars, so you don't get the guy with the cool name or anything like that, but. Originally we thought that with the Seahawks too, but Chris Carson had to retire with the neck issue. So I don't think they're as flush at the position as they once were. And you might see something with defense too. Maybe they saw somebody in their film. They're going to see somebody that's coming off the edge or playing a middle linebacker that they could fit, that they scouted in the college process. That's the difference you get still. Like we were talking earlier about even the Chargers, right? Changing around from Anthony Lynn and all of this and that, and the Dolphins with Tua and changing coaches. Like this is Mike Tomlin and pretty much the same staff, with the exception of, you get some position coaches changes and you change the offensive coordinator, but there's a lot of stability, and the schemes a lot of times remain largely the same, particularly on defense, because you got the architect is there. The architect is Mike Tomlin, just like it's Bill Belichick up in New England. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So
I think Kayvon Chasen is a name to put a pin in for the people. And I sound like a true blue conspiracy theorist with this one, but I thought of it while we were playing the Jaguars, and I feel so good about it that I'm just gonna ride it. And Kayvon Chasen, is a edge rusher for the Jaguars from LSU. He was drafted in the top 10, I believe. Maybe not top 10, but definitely first round 2 years ago, I believe, 2 years ago. And high first round pick. And when we're playing the Jaguars last week, he was in there with like 6 minutes left on defense. He was in with the last bottom of the barrel players, man. And that really rose my eyebrows when I saw that. And I thought, is this guy on the bubble? Is he fighting for a roster spot? Because that, I think, would be classic Steelers to swoop in on this guy who they just saw play. First of all, he caught my attention because he had a really big hit on somebody, but it was too long ago now that I can't remember the particular Steeler that he hit. But he had some play where it was a nice fit, nice tackle, laid a pop. And I thought, this guy's playing with backups. The fourth quarter of the second preseason game, first round pick 2 years ago, we have a need. So he's got the pedigree that Tomlin and the Steelers love. He's still young, like they love, went to a big school. And I think if he gets cut from the Jaguars, or they're trying to trade him for like a 7th or a 6th round pick, that might be a name. I'm shooting from half court on that, but that's just the kind of vibe you could expect of the kind of player the Steelers are trying to get in here. Because we do need edge depth. I think we do need some kind of help on the offensive line. Hopefully, I don't know if I'm hoping for a miracle there, but I don't think the final 53 players are in Pittsburgh right now. I think there's going to be a move or two.
Oh yeah, definitely. There always is. And the bottom, some of the names we mentioned, it may even make it, like a Miles Boykin, for example. It's not necessarily the safest place to be. You're probably on the bottom 10 or 12. And a lot of that sometimes isn't even that player's fault. It's because another position gets hurt and they can't make a move with that player. Let's say DeMonte Casey, for example. Let's say this injury happens and then they don't pull him from or he still has to make the 53 in order to make it, obviously. So there would be like additional transactions there. So you're playing that at risk. I think I'm looking at the same guy, and they changed schemes too. So it's like he's playing some edge rusher too.
Casey, man. I'm ripped up about Casey. That sucks, dude. We finally had our third safety, man.
Calavon, is that how you say his name? Calavon, or is it just Chazen? So 20th overall pick, 20th overall pick 2 years ago, LSU, and hasn't played a whole lot with the Jaguars, but they've been a dumpster fire. He started 3 games in his rookie year, 2020, and then last year he started 8 as an edge rusher. He was playing.
They got a new regime.
Outside linebacker. Oh no, right outside linebacker. They play 3-4. They keep changing things. I can't keep track of like teams like the Jaguars that I don't watch. Everybody changing systems. I'm trying to think who else was just switching some things around, and it was interesting because they were going.
Another point I don't want to forget though that's key about the Chasen thing is that he wasn't drafted by Doug Peterson, who's the coach right now. So he's got nothing going for him. I don't know how the front office feels about him, but that's another layer to the whole he might be available, is that it always happens when a first round pick has been average to below and there's a new staff in place. That guy's always up for trade or possible release.
Yeah, always. And like I said, when they switch systems back, that might not help the player. And oh man, I'm really trying to think. I can't think of who it was. I was listening to, and they were switching things over. For some reason, I'm thinking like the Jets or the Giants or somebody. It wasn't the Jets though, because Salah was there last year as their head coach. So another name though that did pop up, a team that's in flux, and a player that hasn't been playing up to a level that is a veteran player. So Chazon, by the way, 23 years old, just had his 23rd birthday a month ago. Young player with 2 years of experience. Deion Jones, Atlanta Falcons. Maybe some help in the middle. A guy that used to have some sort of pedigree, who is kind of in, who's coaching there now? Arthur Smith in the doghouse. No.
Falcons?
Yeah. Arthur Smith with Mariota, right? Yeah. So kind of in the doghouse. Hasn't missed a game in the last 3 seasons.
LSU.
Just two sacks though last year. Like not the biggest production, but 137 combined tackles. And if he could cover, if he could play, he does play in a 3-4 the last 2 years also. So he's playing like a left inside linebacker. He switched back and forth. The Falcons are always changing stuff up. You know what I mean? With Dan
Isaiah Wynn, you hear about that from New England, the Patriots guy?
That one I don't know about that one either, but it doesn't. I don't at this point, and I hate saying this. You know, I don't like to disparage any players. Again, people are going to say Trubisky haters, and that's not where I'm at. I'm trying to pull down the people that are up here. I'm pulling down here is the same way I was pulling the Mason Rudolph people who are down here up here, and the Kenny Pickett people. I'm rising with you. So Isaiah Wynn, like, probably is an upgrade over Dan Moore. Is not. I didn't say is not, but how much more and what will it take? Maybe could happen. So
yeah.
I don't know what to think of that. And same thing is there's a name we mentioned last week also that might be on the trading block that's being shopped. Alex Leatherwood, I hear, his name has been thrown out there also. So
I'm not as enthusiastic about Leatherwood as I am as Isaiah Wynn, because I think Wynn's put better football on tape. But if Leatherwood gets outright released, or they'll take like a 7th rounder for Leatherwood, which I hate when people say that when it doesn't sound like plausible, but Leatherwood could probably go for a 7th, then I would take him. I would take the project and try to mold him. He wouldn't be brought in here to start, but I mean, Wynn would be brought in to start.
Yeah, I do think it is plausible for that late round of a pick, a 6th or a 7th. Just look what happened, like Justin Gilbert. Like, was he a top 10 pick 9 or something with the Browns as a corner and the Steelers? And that's a really odd within the division rival trade that usually doesn't happen.
Should have known, dude. Looking back, I mean, how obvious could it have been? He might as well have came with a sign around his neck saying, "I suck. Like, I'm not good at football," and that's why the Browns traded me to you, their most hated rival.
Well, the other part of that too is how often does Mike Tomlin ever have his defensive backs returning kicks that don't ever happen? And he threw him out there just like, hey, break a leg, kid. No, I mean it, really. Like, then we don't have to worry about anything.
Please do something of value.
Yeah. I mean, there was nothing else they could even use him for. It's kind of sad. Deion Jones, 27. He'll be 28 sometime during the season. Just a smidge older than maybe a Miles Jack, but somebody who was, halfway solid, halfway decent, may still have some tread left on the tires if they're looking. I don't know if they are or not. It's hard to gauge what they think or what might be the deal with Devin Bush, but you got to think if you ended up benching him that Robert Spillane isn't going to be much of a better option. Do you feel that much better about moving Mark Robinson in that spot? He could be easily exposed much worse with lack of experience and welcome to the NFL, but sometimes those things happen. One guy is falling, descending, again, the rise and the fall, and somewhere they meet in the middle, and one might pass him going up or down the ladder, and it could be Mark Robinson there as well. I don't know. I can't say. I think he'll be on the roster. Hey, there was one name we did miss maybe as like a sleeper. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where Elijah Riley falls into
he almost had an interception, right? Or no, that's Lane. He almost had an interception. Riley did, I thought, off of a tipped ball.
Yeah, and he had another knockdown too. He seems to be in the right places.
I mean, I'd be more excited about that kid, Riley. And I'm not trying to discredit you from the jump right away, but the Trey Norwood is like the one elephant in the room here. Where like, thank God we have him. He's clearly going to be safety 3. But like the Steelers had more in their toolbox with Casey, and they would have been able to do so much more with a guy with his particular skill set and still have Norwood on the field in particular packages. So I'm happy that we have Trey Norwood because he'll still be good, but Casey was just gonna add a whole new page to what the defense could do, I think. And will they try to fill that role and seek out somebody else who can do it? I tend to think not. I would like to, but I think they're comfortable with Trey Norwood, as am I. But that's why that's a bummer. Thankful for Norwood, but still a bummer.
I said this about Riley only because, like, I didn't see. Did Killebrew end up getting any? Has he been around? Like, what's the story?
He's hurt, I think.
He was. I'm like, what's his story too? You know what I mean? Like, he hasn't returned, and what's going to go on with him? And he was a key special teamer, and then you lost Carl Joseph for the year. Now you lose Casey. That's 3 safeties in a room that we felt was really loaded, and you still got Norwood, yeah, but
could have signed Tyrann Mathieu. All our
like they were talking about Riley. Oh, jeez, the money that he got. I know. Never let it go. Here he is. He's on the couch with his shrink. He's going to be talking about Aaron Rodgers and the Honey Badger.
Some guy on Twitter was like, what are you going to do if Pickett doesn't start? I feel like your whole account is dedicated to him. I was like, first of all, dude, I already said I'm fine if Mitch starts. Second of all, are you new here? Were you not around for J.J. Watt, Aaron Rodgers, Tyrann Mathieu, Malik Willis in a sense? Although I was fine with Pickett. Love him now. But this isn't nothing new. It happens all the time, like get with the program. We pump content over here, and content is the NFL. NFL's king.
Absolutely. Well, we're up against it. We actually did a little more than I think we wanted to, and we knew that could happen because once we get rolling, a runaway train. So check for an earlier 53-man roster reaction show here with in the week. Won't be later in the week because you know what? Some of us have some vacation plans. Labor Day weekend, we'll see what goes on early next week as well, so just to keep the 2%ers apprised of what's going on, so you don't have to take any time away from the barbecue or from your grill to listen to myself or Zach, or if that grumpy old man shows up named Brian, and you can make all the wiener dogs that you want, and kiss the cook or kiss the chef apron and everything else. Enjoy your time. You don't have to look at us and oh my goodness, what do they think about Trubisky now? That's where it's going. And Zach isn't in front of the grill anyways. He's got the chicken nuggets on speed dial on the DoorDash.
Man, I'm a grill master. I'd say if you see my profile picture on Twitter, I got my towel on my shoulder. It says King of the Grill.
Does it really? That's it, really? Yeah. Oh, whoa. We cannot possibly close the show without finding this.
I love grilling, dude. My grill was free, man. We got the hookup on that. My girlfriend's parents just like found one. They're on that Facebook marketplace, with the free page. Man, half our shit in this house was free. And like people don't know what they're missing on there, dude. This grill's like a $400 grill. Absolutely free. Yeah. You see me?
There it is. Well, we're trying. Oh, and and the Green Ranger. Nice.
Oh yeah, dude. That boy's for life. Drop a follow while you're there, folks.
Hey, you saw the tailgate grill I just acquired too, so I'm there. I'm sniping stuff on the Facebook Marketplace. Hey, man, thanks for taking time out of your morning with me. And it was a hectic weekend for me. I won't get into that. It's going to be busy this upcoming weekend, and then we've got football on deck. So a lot of our speculation and talking won't be speculation anymore until Trubisky throws a pick or something. We have not seen an interception thrown by any of the quarterbacks who played this entire preseason. That's mind-blowing.
We're quarterback factory, bro.
So, anyways, folks, the F-bomb factory over here, flash bomb, F-bomb, Celedonia, and every time you do that, we need to we're going to bring it back. We're going to bring the lightning bolt in. lightning bolts and beeps. My name's Joe. His name's Zach. We're up against it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, we encourage all of yins out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.